going on, everybody? I'm Gboogie from Gboogie.net, and today is the 17th of September 2009. Obviously you can see my screen. It's 1:21 p.m. Thursday, and today we're going to get into some foolproof business credit. We decided to actually record a little something earlier because the software is so unreliable when you're doing it live. And especially when you have ticket sales and things like that, you definitely want to make sure that things go off without a hitch as much as humanly possible. So we're just gonna get into this. I figured I'd go over some material earlier and give you guys a chance to soak up some of the stuff. Then we'll go with the live Q&A after this plays. And that way at least you'll still get the information if we have to deal with bugs in the software and everything else afterwards. So, my name is Gboogie from Gboogie.net, and I just want to introduce, I want to welcome some of the newer members, and I just want to introduce them to the Foolproof Business Credit Plan. And we're going to go through some things. I think screen sharing is better when it comes to filling out apps and stuff like that. Let's make sure we are recording, which I think we are. Just double check. Yeah, we're recording. Software causes the browser to kind of act crazy, kind of pause and stuff like that. So we're going to try our best to run down the system like one step at a time, basically. And all this really is, of course, you have to start with an idea. I would suggest that you start with an idea that actually, pertains to an actual viable business. Anything other than that, you're basically setting yourself up for failure. If you just need a few extra bucks to pay bills, or just need, an outlet for, extra spendable cash, this probably wouldn't be the best way to go about it. These things are better appreciated when they're pursued in the long run. And most of the time, it's just like anything else. Most of the time, people get too anxious before they're actually at the finish line, and begin to cash out or begin to stray away from the original plan. So that's definitely a no-no as well. And as I said, with the screen capture software on, everything's going to run kind of slow. The screen capture software also produces an enormously huge file, and we're going to make sure that that's why we're doing it now at 124. So that way it'll give us all the time in the world to actually try to convert it down. It hasn't been working over the last couple of times, but if I have to go over this again live with with a glitchy system, that's fine too. Just figured I'd take a little initiative and get the jump on it, and knowing that if I could secure a decent recording right now, that the actual Q&A later would be would be awesome. Like, we combine the two together, and as new people come in and join, we can pretty much try to answer most of their questions. And as you see, we're at the EIN, IRS government website for getting your tax ID online. I just want to go over a few brief things before we really get deep into this stuff, because since this will be pre-recorded, it'll give me the opportunity to put a damper on some of the questions I know I will be receiving, questions that are most frequently asked, that kind of thing, and questions I get. We're getting up to almost 5,000 emails a day that we're answering just from this website. And trust me, we get our share of frequently asked questions. We're gonna go with question number one, and this kind of helps people adjust their questions when they actually send them in. One of the most frequently asked questions is how long does it take to get a paydex? This is all controlled by Dun & Bradstreet. There's no way that anyone can tell you with any certainty exactly how long. There's too many factors involved. When you make your orders, when you pay for your vendor, your net 30, net 10, net 15 orders, the time of the month, if there are any holidays or anything coming, within that time frame, whether or not you're flagged, whether or not you've tried to start a business before, got a few accounts and are overdrawn or delinquent on those accounts. All this stuff comes into play. Whether someone lived where you live at, or if you're a home-based business and someone had defaulted on something at that address previously, it could cause things to get held up. So to ask a general question like that without me knowing any of your background or anything is almost impossible to answer it. Yes, sir. If all things were perfect and all things were done the correct way, and for the sake of argument, let's say that you're not flagged and you just your first pursuit at this, then roughly, and then another factor, if you make your order, towards the end of the month, if it just so happens to be, the 24th, 25th of the month, then you can receive a paydex score using these methods in, as little as 6 weeks, as little as a month, actually 3 weeks, but it just all depends on timing and actually putting these processes to use. I just want to go over one or two more. I don't want to leave it on a blank screen here for too long, but the other one is asking questions like, okay, I got a paydex, what can I get? What should I apply for next? Another very vague question. Again, it doesn't, having a paydex means nothing. You can buy 3 items from vendors, on credit and pay them back at $50 a piece and you have a paydex score. So it doesn't mean anything. It means you have a paydex score. All that means successfully purchased 3 items. It doesn't even mean you successfully paid for them. It just means you purchased them. So if the question is being directed my way, I would not know what amount your orders are at, what other steps you took. Did you register your company in directories? Do you have a landline phone registered, or listed in 411? Do you have a business license? Do you have a bank account? Are you incorporated? Like these things, these things need to be known in order to actually get a good assessment of where you stand. And one more thing before we get into this, and I'm going to stop after this. Another question we get: how do you know when you're ready for this, this account or that account? What I always suggest to individuals, business owners, is that if you want a Staples card, which is backed by Citibank, there's a lot of different companies backed by Citibank that you may not have a use for, as far as setting up accounts with them. So if you always want to gauge, your credibility by ordering from someone that's underwritten by the same bank, and then kind of gauging what they approve you for. If you get approved, period, then you're on. You're looking pretty good. If you go like to a Staples per se, say Staples on a minimal credit, they usually, on a minimal credit file, they usually give out $750 in credit. So if you were to go to like say a Shell gas card or something that's also backed by Citi, and they gave you $500 for a gas card, that will let me know not to try Staples, because gas cards usually start out $1,000, $2,000, $4,000, and I can gauge the fact that yes, I did get approved, but only for $500. And I would then put in a little more work and wait till a few more things hit before I actually proceeded to Staples. And you just test that out the whole way up. Once you get Staples, you usually get Office Depot and Home Depot pretty much automatically. And once you're ready to move up, you have plenty of other companies like Sears and Radio Shack that are still in that city circle. So hopefully everybody understood that. And if not, we'll go over some more stuff during Q&A. So we're going to start with the tax ID, which is always a good place to start. I'm not gonna mock everything and breeze through it. This is pretty self-explanatory, but I'm just giving some people opportunity to see it that this is the first time they have no clue how this works. This is an online application. At certain times of the day, it is not available, and as you can see here. But to actually get to the app, because sometimes it's so confusing, I clicked on it and it's still not telling me anything. I apply online, excuse me, now. And as I said, as you can see, we're running at serious processing, 91% processing power. That's Microsoft for you. But then it says begin application. And we're going to get into a little bit of the aging stuff. Now, this stuff, when it comes to aging, is strictly for informational purposes. This is just to explain to you how the system actually works. Anything that's done is, it's always best to use your better judgment, but it's just pretty much, like I said, a preliminary run on how things work. And as I mentioned before, it's very frustrating because as the processing power is getting punished, the browser is moving extra slow. So hopefully we can get the browser to concur for us. And hopefully, hopefully it's just this site, and I don't know when. We'll give it a few minutes. It might time out. But either way it goes, this is the app. After you actually click this, that's when it actually, is it for a corporation or for an individual? Normally it's for an individual, and you go through steps. What we're going to do instead, like I said, we're going to get into a little bit of aging. We're going to bring everything in as we go, and we're going to explain it as we go. Try to make it as, not exciting, but at least not a dentist convention where, this is a snore bore, put you to sleep. And try to make this educational, try to make it fun. I know that usually the question and answer, live sessions are definitely more involved, definitely more exciting. But this stuff, I always feel like I get so many questions when I explain this to the letter, and it's always better if you actually can show it like we're doing now. Now, this is your standard tax ID form. Nothing out of the ordinary about it. But this is just something to explain again how things work. If you look at line 11 here, line 11 actually asks date the business started or acquired. And even though this is a 2009 form, it asks for the month, day, and year. There are many different reasons why companies that have been in business for some time have decided to get, to obtain a tax ID later on. I give you a quick and dirty example. Let's say I was a sole proprietor, never filled out for a tax ID number, used my social. Name of my sole proprietorship may have been the same name, as my government name. If that's the case, you don't need a tax ID. And I may have decided to get a more professional structure together. So when I go to fill this out, if I've been in business for 10 years, surely you wouldn't expect me to put today's date as the date the business started. Even if I'm not documented, even if everything's going straight on a W4, if I'm filling out individual personal income taxes, either way, I've literally been in business for 10 years. So I would put a 10-year date there, like very obviously. And everything else is pretty straightforward. Some people have problems. I would hope by now they don't. Let me see, I don't know what line that is off the top of my head. Where it asked closing accounting month and stuff like that. I don't know exactly what number that is. But when you get to keep things simpler, it's usually better to end. So like a fiscal year, keep on a calendar year. And that's it. So, this is very brief. I didn't want to spend a million years on this, but you guys know, pointing out line 11. That's it. Okay, we're moving on. And this is where everything starts from. You have to come up with an idea, figure out a name, get your tax ID. We're not going to really hover too long on the basics because we have a free ebook on the website that actually takes care of that. So, okay. Now, starting out, this is really another thing that's key, and I probably should have mentioned this beforehand. A lot of people, we get a high percentage of individuals that are interested in real estate, and that's what they're really needing capital for, and that's the actual target that they need the financing for. Like actually, if they whether they need to rent, buy, flip, whatever the case may be. That's usually what a lot of people ask me questions about is the real estate. Okay, we go. I just want to let everybody know real estate is a high risk SIC code. This is like an OSHA website, and they base high risk on the amount of injury risk as far as SIC codes go. This also applies to the banking world because the higher your risk job, the higher insurance would be. Workman's comp and things like that. So when you're thinking of your business, say you may want to go into the field of real estate at this time to be perfectly flat out about it. No one's lending for vague reasons anymore. Like those days are over. You can't, even with a great business plan, it's not happening. Like those are the areas where you definitely have to have your personal credit score involved. Those are the areas where you definitely can't skimp on anything that's required. Like, I mean, you have to go in, and it's an arduous task and procedures that you have to go through. And that's just not happening anymore. So it's always better to actually find a SIC code. And a SIC code is the classification that your business is under. Like, to say real estate is vague, but what type of real estate you do is, if you rent, whether you lease, whether you're a broker, that's where the SIC code comes in and actually fine tunes a little bit more for the government exactly what you do. And then they let you know, like, the real estate, I just saw one, is SIC code starts, 6067.